Welcome everybody, this is the SharePoint Management Practices bi-weekly community call around the general SharePoint development. And this basically the whole call is all about the everything else except the SharePoint framework and the JavaScript and client-side development topic. So we basically cover end-to-end solution designs, provisioning is a big thing obviously in SharePoint, automation, APIs, Flow and PowerApps is a relatively new thing in here, but people want to have those covered in this course, so we will cover them in this course as well. And now that please remember to mute yourself when you are in this call, so we won't have that much background noise. Thank you. So I'm muting a few people from here, and there we go. Oh, somebody is still alive. Good. So in this call, like I said, we talk about all of the other stuff than SharePoint framework, provisioning, big thing, PnP PowerShell, PnP site score, CSAM, and all of those things, big thing. Microsoft Flow is a growing theme here as well, and the Power Apps. So we will have typically from this moment forward, or starting from the spring, like at least one demo or within this calls around the Microsoft Flow and Power Apps as well, in the context of SharePoint or in the context of Office 365, because there is clearly a demand for that, and people are highly interested in those things as well. Now, if you are interested in participating on this community, you are absolutely welcome to join on these calls and do a demo or show a technical pattern related on CSAM, REST, PowerShell usage, Azure usage, Azure function, Flow, or whatever. We actually have a pretty nice queue already, people queued up on this, doing these demos in the community call, but if you're interested in joining, just ping me or Jax or Irvin or anybody from the core team, doesn't really matter, and we'll figure out what is the suitable time for you to do the demo. You can absolutely also contribute in the SharePoint GitHub organization or the PnP GitHub organization towards our open source projects, which are available for you to get your contributions in. And obviously when you contribute, you will get acknowledged in our monthly communications and in our monthly community calls. So you're getting your name mentioned and potentially your company mentioned as well. Now, and you can absolutely also provide feedback using the social media and other channels as well. And that is absolutely more than welcome, because we in the SharePoint engineering, we need to understand what's wrong. If you don't like something, if something is wrong, if something is missing, please let us know, so we're able to address that within the SharePoint Online or in on-premises. Now, a few things around today. So I will have only short few slides which I wanted to go through before we go to the actual demo section. So some general announcements, the typical slides which I always have here, and a few other ones. And then we're going to have two demos today. From Akel around the SharePoint Power Apps tips and tricks. So he's going to show some cool stuff over there. And then Irvin Van Hoenen is going to talk about the advanced provisioning scenarios in the SharePoint Starter Kit. So earlier today, we finally got the blog post out around the SharePoint Starter Kit, which is a great, let's say, reference solution how to extend out-of-the-box modern experiences. So building client-side web parts, building extensions, and all of that. So really cool stuff. We should have time for Q&A. So I've tried to be fast on my section, so we will have enough time for the demos, and we'll have enough time for Q&A as well. Cool. Now, documentation guidance, I promised to keep this one in here until the eternity. So basically AKMS SP DevDocs or docs.microsoft.com/SharePoint, and you can find the developer documentation in here. MSDN will be actually shut down within 2 weeks, so by end of this month, and we are currently still in the progress of migrating, for example, API documentation, server-side API documentation, and some other stuff to the docs.microsoft.com platform. But all of the relevant stuff, all of the new stuff is already in the docs.microsoft.com platform. We're also looking into moving or actually creating the relevant documentation related on Microsoft Flow and Microsoft and the Power Apps in the context of SharePoint inside of this location. So you'll find additional content here as well. That's something which we agreed earlier this week with Jax, and we have a pretty nice plan on making sure that you can find what's relevant within those topics for you as well using this this one single location. Now, the second thing, kind of related, partly related, partly not related, is the issue list. And this is something, let me be, again, super clear on this one. So the SharePoint Online support, if you call and use the tenant support from your Office 365 tenant UIs, and you open up a case which is related on API or development, they are not actually supporting you on those questions or those reports, because they do not have the skills to do that. So they basically will say that, well, we can't support you because we don't know how to do that. And for that reason, we have then opened up this issue list where we in engineering, twice a week, at least twice a week, we will do a triage on this list. And then we decide if there are urgent critical things to jump in, or if they are something which are our engineers will process as we move along on those topics. So we prioritize these issues at least twice a week. We're still slightly behind of catching up the situation from May, but we should get it up to date relatively soon. Now, one of the things which we announced earlier today we've been announcing this and demonstrating this for a while already, but there was a new blog post in dev.office.com/blogs related on the details and the thinking behind of the SharePoint Starter Kit. And the SharePoint Starter Kit is something which is available in the GitHub as a open source project where what you can use to learn how to make development on the modern experiences. So AKMS SP Dev Starter Kit is a redirection directly to the GitHub. There is also a blog post in the dev.office.com/blogs around this one. And there's actually a new video as well, which is showing what is actually the SharePoint Starter Kit all about. So how does it actually work, how to get started, how does it actually behave. The default color of this one is orange, and I do apologize for some reason. That seems to be a big thing for some people. Everybody is like, why orange? Well, orange is my favorite color, which apparently is a weird thing for people as well. But you can absolutely flip the color on the experience on the solution really easily using the Office 365 theming, like you can see from the pictures over there. Like mentioned quickly, we've shown this quite a few times as well. There is more than 15 web parts inside of this package. There's 7 extensions. There's site design, site scripts, taxonomy-based implementation, user profile-based implementation, a lot of other stuff here as well. This is right.
Sorry to disappoint you also, maybe, but also to interrupt you.
Yeah, not a problem.
Me including, and many other people just see the title slide of your deck, and I actually restarted Skype already twice.
So this is that's a pity. So okay, I've been going pretty far. So okay, good. So that's 10 minutes of restarting from scratch. Cool.
Now it's moving.
But somebody else is actually now moving that. That's now the weird thing. So I'm trying to now take an ownership of the presentation. And
I was just trying.
Cool. So now I'm actually have it. Cool. So a documentation, AKMS SP Dev Docs, like mentioned, issue list, AKMS SP Dev issues as well. So that should be clear for everybody. The SharePoint Starter Kit, AKMS SP Dev Starter Kit, and here we can see actually the pictures what I was referring to. So the green one, blue one, and the black one are just flipped of the different themes which are available in Office 365 themes. So the orange one is the default one, but basically we're just showing how to deploy a custom theme to the Office 365 tenant. So just demonstrating how things can be done, and you can then change everything in the way what you want. But this is really around showing how to build an end-to-end solution and how to extend out-of-the-box communication sites or out-of-the-box Office 365 group associated team sites, so modern team sites. There is more than 15 web parts, 7 extensions, site design, site scripts, custom theme deployment. It is actually relatively complex provisioning script as well, but it's super cool because it is actually creating multiple site collections and configuring the tenant end-to-end. And Ermin is going to explain how that script actually works later today, within his demo. Super cool automation stuff here. And this is an open source community-driven development model. So right now there are certain, for example, limitations on this one. This only works for targeted release tenants. So you have to use the first release or targeted release tenant option. And it has to be an English tenant. And we do know that that's a nasty limitation. But for now, inside of the scripts, there are dependencies around the library names or document library names. So looking into having all of that resolved in the future. If you want to help with a pull request on fixing some of this stuff, that is absolutely more than welcome, because we're doing this as an open source initiative as well. So we're spending our own time on evenings and weekends on fixing some of this stuff. So it's not like this is our day job as such. But really cool stuff, really cool solution. You can easily set up this to any tenant. We do recommend that you would use a test tenant or a developer tenant, because it does deploy stuff in the tenant scope. So in other users would see the site scripts and site designs and taxonomy options and all of those available. So it is better to actually test it in a different tenant. Now, if you only want to have some of those web parts, like the tiles web part, which is quite widely actually already adopted, the tiles web part is part of the SPP-KG file, the solution package. You don't have to use the provisioning script. You're able to just download the SPP-KG file, the web part file, or the solution, and install that to your tenant, and you're able to start using, for example, the tiles web part, which is visible in the picture over there. Now, cool. One thing what I wanted to also talk about here, and this is an interesting topic. Luckily, there's 138 participants on the call, so we can assume that there's some people who are using our CSOM NuGet packages here. Now, the CSOM client-side object model NuGet packages for SharePoint 2013 and SharePoint 2016 haven't been actually updated for a long time, which is also and has been giving us the baseline for the capabilities what the PnP Provisioning engine, as an example, is capable of using. So as an example, in SharePoint 2013, the baseline has been April 2015 CU. So if you have to use that CU level or a newer one, and the PnP Provisioning engine should be working without any issues, or, well, obviously there's always bugs, but it's designed to work with that or a newer version. Now, for SharePoint 2016, the baseline is actually RTM version of SharePoint 2016. So right now, we started with this thinking first on the, hey, well, we should probably pump up the versions, because there are certain new properties and capabilities on the newer versions of CSOM, and we were thinking on potentially doing a new baseline for both SharePoint 2013 and SharePoint 2016 on the September 2017 CU. And what this means is that I'm highly curious on the fact that is this too new version for the community, if that is the minimum requirement to be able to use PnP CSOM or PnP Provisioning engine, because that will be then the baseline. And highly curious if somebody has any input on that one, or then nobody wants to actually think about these things. On 2019, 2019 CSOM, 2019 comes to preview on summer. We do not have an exact date yet. Obviously, we do have a target date available internally, but we do not have an exact date which we can share. But it is coming to preview relatively soon, and there will be obviously some NuGet version on the SharePoint 2019. We're working also with Visual Studio updates with the Visual Studio team on making sure that there's a support for that, at least in an RTM timeframe of the SharePoint 2019. A lot of the people are working on so basically on Philip's comment, this would actually mean that PnP Provisioning would require that the baseline would be September 2017 CU. Because then if you use an older version, then we might hit a property which is not there and enabled on the server side. And this is really the challenge. We're trying to now figure out what would be the right baselines, which we are asking people to upgrade their on-premises deployment as a minimum requirement to be able to use these things. September 2017, there's a service pack 1 for SharePoint 2013, but that's already like 5 years old or 4 years old, so that's not a right baseline either. But we want to pump up the version. We just needed to somehow come up with a baseline. The September 2017 CU for SharePoint 2013 is selected right now as a tentative one, because that would be then in line with SharePoint 2016 Feature Pack 2. Because obviously, if you are in SharePoint 2016, you should absolutely use Feature Pack 2 as a minimum baseline for your deployment. There is one additional notice on the slide, which I added there as a final thing. I know that I might be confusing some people, and some people might not be able to follow up on what we're even talking. But in the May 2018 CU, we are finally fixing a zone ID, which is a property which was missing from the web part definition in SharePoint 2016, even though that property does exist in SharePoint 2013, which is kind of insane, but that's on us in SharePoint engineering. We can't do a baseline yet to the May 2018 CU, so we need to do a baseline. We were thinking of doing baselining on the Feature Pack 2. But at least there's nobody in the Iron window saying, no, you can't do that. So we might be doing that right now, and then if there's a massive backlash, people having issues, then we might fall back slightly on the versions. But this would be something what we want to do, so you will get additional capabilities available in the engine and in the baseline. Okay, cool. Nobody's yelling like enormously, so that's fine. Okay, excellent. I will move forward with that high-level plan. What could go possibly wrong, indeed? Good. One thing also, just a reminder before we go to the demos, so we will renew our meeting invites next week. You will see communications and social media around this, and also the AKMS SP PnP links will be renewed at that time. Today is actually the last recurrent meeting for this particular bi-weekly special interest group meeting, so the invite will have to be renewed, and that's why we need to actually do this. We will do some structural changes in the invites as well, so that we are able to maintain and update the links and invites and everything else more efficiently in the future. If we would, for example, flip to, let's say, Teams broadcasting capability or something else in the future, which might or might not be there, we'll see. Good. The renewed invites will be available within next week. So it is not yet available because I haven't created the invites. So it's a timing issue. So that's on me because I haven't actually done that yet. Now, moving on things, quick roadmap update. I didn't want to spend too much time on this one because we definitely want to go to the demos. The next, let's say, a bigger kind of a functionality release will be SharePoint Framework 1.6, which has an ETA, an estimated time of arrival, end of July. It might be slightly delayed, or it might be in that one. But there is some interesting capabilities inside of that one, like the globally deployed SharePoint Framework extensions, which will be available in there, and a few additional things which will be included in that release. 1.7 of the SharePoint Framework is now planned to go live then in Ignite 2018 from a timing perspective, and we have not yet looked down what will be in that version, but you can kind of assume what will be there based on what's not getting shipped on the 1.6. But a lot of cool stuff coming, and obviously we will keep on releasing a new version of the CSAM, new versions of the other APIs and documentation along the way, and also newer versions of PowerApps and Flow are moving along on their journey as well. Now, let's actually move into the demo topics and demo section. So the first one and first person on the line is Akel, who is already a presenter.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Yep, order is good.
Okay, let me show you my screen.
So, Vesa, I thought I will give one public service announcement on recent Flows update. But I need to share my screen, just show that I show something.
Okay, so let's do that then first. Sorry, Akel, let's jump on Jax. No, we missed the synchronization with Jax on this one. I should have probably have a slide waiting for Jax to talk about.
We have had like customer events and hackathon days back in office, so it's been very busy.
Excuses. I know.
We got to have those excuses, just like how you randomly restarted.
Absolutely.
Let me know if you guys can see my screen.
And it is there. Yes, we can see your screen.
So one of the feedback we always get is sharing flows to SharePoint users, especially if you have a flow attached to a list. How do my list users get access to the flow, whether it's owning the flows or running the flows if you have flows created for the selected item. So one update that we worked with Flow team, this is kind of the first part of the update, is to make it easier for customers to share flows with your SharePoint users. So if you have a flow that is using a SharePoint trigger, like this interview feedback updated, and you click on the owners and users group, you will actually now see a new tab called SharePoint. So previously, you can come here and you would have to enter everybody's name, and that will basically give access to those people. But now you can go to the SharePoint tab, and that will filter the sites that you're using, especially the trigger and other actions, the SharePoint actions that the flow uses. In this case, it's using the site human resources and the list that I use from this site in this flow. So for example, interview feedback and interview prep. So I know that based on the flow creator, because I created this flow, that all the people in the interview feedback should have access to the owners. So that means that the owners of the list, not the members, but the owners of the list who can manage list will automatically get owners access, and they will have access to this flow. So if somebody else leaves in the owners group, in the list manage owners group, you can still get access to others coming in and basically updating the list. Similarly, there is also, if I can show, run-only users. So run-only users are the folks that don't own the flows, but they can run the flows. So here we have owners. Similarly, you can go to the run-only users, and there we also have the same thing. So you can say from the customer feedback side, the site pages library, everyone within that whoever has access to the site pages library can now run the flow. So if we select the item, they would be able to see this flow and run this flow. So this is something, the first piece. The second piece, we're going to be integrating this right into the SharePoint UX. When you create the flow, we automatically will give permissions to manage these two respective users. So that's something we released 2 weeks ago. I don't know how many people have seen this yet, but let's try it out and let me know if you have any feedback.
Chucks, actually on that one, I'm going to ask a question because nobody else is asking that in the Ion window. How would is there an API to actually make this happen automatically if we want to, because there's so many, let's say, partners who manage hundreds of tenants, so they need to be able to push their flows available and then do this kind of stuff using an API?
Yes, so right now the API landscape is very, very negligible. We don't have the right APIs from Flow to do these things. Hopefully, when we do factor in the way how you can come through SharePoint, maybe we can have something. So basically, this comes down to how we want to do from SharePoint side. We haven't yet thoughts. We have ideas. Maybe there is a setting that says whenever somebody creates a flow, automatically share these things to users and stuff like that. And if there is something, then we can do some API on SharePoint side that goes and for that list, if there are flows, it may find and do the smart things it needs to do. From the flow side, we don't have any API.
So Jackson, that's not actually really the scenario. Scenario would be that we would need to have an API to be able to push the flow in and then associate the flow to a specific list or a library. Because if you are managing hundreds of tenants, you don't want to go one by one and click through the tenants.
So that's a different scenario. This is a different scenario. This is about permissions. Who has access to the flow, which means the flow is already set up with a SharePoint trigger. When I say SharePoint trigger, you will have a trigger that says for a selected item or for this particular library whenever new items are created, updated. The scenario that you're talking about is basically how do I deploy a flow so that I can then, for example, I can export this flow and deploy this flow and then change all the connections to whatever that new SharePoint list in the destination where I'm importing this flow.
Correct.
So that one, today it's a tedious process. I will demo that in the next call. That will basically take more time, but we are looking into those scenarios. And one thing you saw in the keynote is to be able to import these flows along with lists and libraries. And at that time, we may get much better functionality to do that actually. Right now, it's a bit tedious process, but I can show that in another call.
Yeah, and the whole point is not like pinpointing that there's a gap, but we need to understand, everybody in the community need to understand what's possible and what's not, and when it's potentially coming. I think that's always a fair point as well.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
Cool. Anything else from your side, Jax? Or should we jump to
so I will,
Eco? That's really cool stuff.
Yeah, we'll jump to Eco. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, let me know if you see my screen. Well, my browser.
Not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. Let's see. Now it's loading. And got it. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, great. Well, first things first. In any case, if anyone wants to ask me some questions afterwards or want to know more information of what I'm going to show you, that's my Twitter handle. So you can ask me from there, or I'm actively in the PowerApps community, so you can ask questions there too. So I was going to show a PowerPoint presentation, but I thought the community side is better to show you all the things that I've learned from working with PowerApps in the SharePoint list forms, okay? So one of the questions that I've been seeing and all the things I have learned working with these kinds of PowerApps is when to use them. You always get the simple, for example, the simple list that you can have in the SharePoint list, that you can see all the information from the fields that you create and everything and all this stuff. And these lists are very powerful because you can have this kind of controls. You can have combo box, drop downs. You can put numbers and attachments and whatever, but it depends on the work that you're doing, because, for example, this is a simple list of SharePoint, but in the Power list that you can see here is the same list that I showed you before, but using PowerApps. And this type of list shows you the same information. You can see the same structure and the same controls that you could see on the normal list. But it depends on whatever you're doing. If the works that you're doing is just getting some information from, for example, expenses that you need to set for fields in your application, there's really no use to use PowerApps. But if you need to join several lists to display very large information for the user, or do you need to have proper controls or go beyond what's the normal SharePoint list gives you? For example, you want to use an OCR scanner or bar chart or whatever, you can go with PowerApps because it's very powerful. Okay. Another thing that I was going to show you is the three kinds of PowerApps in the SharePoint list PowerApps. As you know, PowerApps in the SharePoint list are a special kind of PowerApps, are not the usual PowerApps that you've been working with. For example, I'm going to show you in this list that I have here, if it goes there. The three main PowerApps that you can see is the integrated one that you just showed you just before, the normal PowerApp that you can build in the PowerApps Studio, where you can have a connection with the SharePoint list and deploy your PowerApps to mobile devices or to share that PowerApp in your organization. And the other one is the full screen version, where you can see here we have for this list this PowerApp integrated with the list that when it changes the data when you select the items in your list. There's also, you can see that in here, this is the list that you can, this is the PowerApp that you build if you click on Customize Forms. But if you click on Create App, you will get even a list in a view in your list that shows you this Power App. It's kind of like a full screen Power App or a normal Power App, but it's showing you, it's hiding the list and it's showing you only the Power App. It depends on the case that you are working with. Maybe you want to have a Power App for your organization because everyone has an iPad and is gathering all the information from those devices. You can create this app from the list and deploy it to your Power Apps organizations. Okay, so that way you don't have to let them go to have your users go to the SharePoint. To go to SharePoint to access the Power App. They can go through the Power Apps application, for example, in the Google Store or on the EOS Store. Okay. Okay. The big difference here, for example, you have the full screen Power App that I just showed you, and the standalone Power Apps, that is the one that you create from Power Apps, from Power Apps itself. Okay. When you go to, there are two main differences between these two Power Apps. Let it open. The full screen Power App, as I call it, has the same interface as a normal Power App that you create from Power Apps Studio, but it has some difference in here. For example, if you go to App Settings in your Power App, you have all these sizes for your Power App. You can set the size of your Power App to all this and even a custom size. But that's for the standalone Power App. But for the full screen, you can only have in the screen size these two choices. Okay. So if you want to work with a Power App that has some extensibility in regarding the size of your Power App, you should go for the standalone or just create an integrated Power App and then change the size accordingly. Okay. What else I was going to show you? For example, when you work with Power Apps, once you know which kind of Power Apps you want to build, you can have, for example, you need to know and you need to take into account some things before you work. One of the things, for example, that I've learned is that, for example, when you create the custom fields for your list, I'm going to show you an example of a list that has these kinds of name: title, text, space, data, validation with parentheses, and even a Spanish song that means song, that is canción, and all these fields that are very large. It might seem okay when you work with this list with these names, but when you create the Power App for this list, this is what you get when you go to the Power Apps. You can see here the title, it says title. The text data is being renamed to these special unencoded fields that so Power Apps can understand and can communicate with this list. This is not ideal if you want to work with these kinds of fields. Maybe you don't want to work with the SharePoint forms. Maybe you need to work with the patch solutions. And if you try to rename these kinds of fields, it's very difficult. Especially these two, for example, that are almost the same name at the beginning, but it's impossible to know which one is the one that you need to work. So my recommendation, when you work with Power Apps, you can create the same fields, but try to use a normal without special characters. For example, text data without the space, validation without the parentheses, and even the word canción without the acento. Okay, you can go to the list settings. You can even create a column for your list. For example, a receipt type without the spaces. It will create the field. There's a particular property for each field that is called internal name. This is the one that PowerApps uses to communicate with the list and to put the information inside this field. So when you create the field for the first time, or the column for the first time, it receives this name in the internal field. Then you can change the name of this field to wherever you want, but PowerApps will communicate with this field with the internal name. So it won't be an issue afterwards. You will know that receipt type is receipt type without having to work with those special characters that PowerApps uses to overcome the issues with these characters. For example, this is a good naming list. If I refresh the data source for this list, you will see that now I can see the receipt type with a space. I can add it to my form, but it will it will have the same name that I created at the first time. So this is the kinds of things that you might want to take into account when you create this list, because let's say, for example, you use this list with a Power App to build, to gather many information from several sources, and then connect that to Power BI to model all this information into graphics. When you connect in Power BI this data source for the Power BI solution in the Power BI Online, you will see the wrong names. These names in Power BI. So it's better to have proper naming for each field, so it's not a headache afterwards when you work in Power BI. Okay? And after this, I wanted to show you another thing that is a trick that I learned when creating apps in Power Apps when you have many fields. Let's say, for example, I have this field here. Okay, let's say I have this field here. Let's say I want to create a Power App from this list. This list, for example, has 15 or 18 fields that I created. Sorry if my computer is kind of slow, but as I'm presenting it's not responding very well. See if it will. Let's see if it. Okay, now it's going. Okay, if I create a Power App from this list, Power App itself, it will connect to this data source and will try to create a form with all the fields that my list has. Okay, there are some times where that's okay, but if you have many fields, it will kind of be an issue when you try to build the UI for your app. In this case, I have all these fields and I have to scroll down to see all the information, and it's not very suitable to work with this. So one of the things that I do, okay, let's change to landscape mode. This will change all my controls to resize them. You have to work a little to put this information pretty well. Let's say, for example, I take this form, I change the size, I go here, and let's say, well, snap to, let's say, 6 columns, sorry. And okay, the title goes this size. Oh, the account, the customer says that the department needs to be this big, and the position is this big. Okay, everything seems okay, but we're getting again with the issue with the scroll. Well, let's say we remove some of the fields here, here, here. Okay. Okay, everything is okay. I need to set this big. Okay, I'm on the same issue again. So one of the things that I come up to solve this issue, because I don't like the people to be scrolling all the time, is to create virtual tabs. How do I create them? So I go here, I create one little line using a rectangle. Okay, I will set this like this, go over here, for example. Okay, this is my form. I'm going to set right here. And let's difference the company fields from my expense manager. Okay, so I will put a label here. Let's see, a little bigger. Okay, let's put some fields here for my tabs. That is going to be another one. Okay, this is going to have the expense, and this is going to have the company data. Okay, so far so good. Okay, let's click these two ones and set them bigger. Okay. As well. Okay. Okay, I do have these virtual tabs. So I'm going to need a selector for these virtual tabs. So I create a rectangle again and set it to here. Okay. Now it looks like this is a tab for this UI. Okay. One of the things that I always do is to group the several items together. For example, this is going to be my menu, so I'm going to set it to my tabs. Okay. So so far so good. Okay. I now can create a new screen where I'm going to copy this menu and move it accordingly. Okay. Now we are on the company tab, and it looks some sort of working. Okay. But what do I do with all these fields that I do have in the form? Okay, so it's no issue. I go here, I unblock these fields to make changes, just simply clicking on here, and I'm going to delete them. Select everything in the data card, delete them to be perfectly. Set the height to 0 so I can not see it. Okay, so no more scrolling. Well, just a little bit. Okay. Okay. So everything is okay. But what about these warnings? So I can go to this screen. I can insert one label. Let's insert one text. That's with the copying. You know, you need to do better than this, because this is a demo and this always looks bad, but you need to do better than this. Okay. Okay. We have all this information. What I'm going to set in here for the data. Okay, so this is going to be the name is going to be the company name. This is going to be the address. And this is going to be, oh, sorry, wrong name. Press input. And this is going to be, for example, phone. Okay. So I can go here, this one, and set your current update field is not going to be the one that you had. It's going to be the company. Name field. You are going to use the font input field, and you're going to use the address input field. So now, whenever if I use this form, I can go here. Well, one step I'm missing is when I put here, I'm going to navigate to the company screen. Oh, sorry, I didn't put a name. So let's say screen 1. No thing. And on this screen, whenever I click the expense, I'm going to navigate to the firm screen. Okay. So when you test this, you can go here. Well, it's not showing data because I'm not connected to the SharePoint at this moment, and well, because I need to put this on. Sorry. Yeah, okay. So if we use these kinds of UI building, you can have many tabs, many screens to display all the information for your user. For example, you need to have all this. Let's say you are collecting information from an action that your company did, and you can have all the action of this process in one screen, the company that it belongs into another screen, the receipts that you collected into doing that project in another screen, without making all these changes into only one screen. Okay, this is one of the examples that you can have when building PowerApps. Okay. So this thing that you can, well, we can go back to SharePoint. By using this way, you can extend a form into several screens and just use the same form that you have in your first screen. When you save the information, it's going to take all the information from the other screens, from the other screens that you have in your application, into the same connection with the SharePoint integration. Okay. One of the other things I wanted to show you. Well,
now, Akel, I need to apologize on this stage because we're already 10 minutes to the hour, and we would have Irvin wait up on the.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I was going to ask you if I'm over my time. It's okay.
Yep. But this is actually really cool because you can actually see now that's associated and it's working like a tab. And sure, you can align those things in a way that it looks really, really consistent. So really cool.
I wanted to go really fast with this, but.
Yep, all good, all good. That's really cool demo, and absolutely, because this shows how you can extend and simplify the form and making it simple, making it like a wizard style form. Even you could easily do that as well. Really cool stuff.
Well, thanks for this. I was going to show you but I'm going to save it for the next time, how to work with several environments, like when you have a deployment environment and the production environment. Well. But that's for the next session, okay?
Yep, let's do that. Thank you, Akel, for this one, because we absolutely want to get Irvin on the demo side as well. So, Irvin, can you flip still?
You will have to promote me to presenter because I reconnected.
Okay, let's make that happen. Make you a presenter. There we go. And show your new status.
Thank you. I will. Right, the starter kit that we released a few weeks ago, and today the blog post came out. And people seem to like it a lot, which makes us very happy. What I will talk about is how we do the provisioning of the starter kit and the components that are into play when you decide to create your own portal. So one of the things we would like to stress is that you maybe want to test this on a development tenant first, or acceptance test tenant, or whatever tenant you have around, and play around there, because we do create site collections with a predefined name. And I'll talk you through. I will not run the script. It will take 7 minutes. It's just a bit boring to look at. But I will talk you through what the script is doing and which are the other files that make up the whole provisioning story here. So when you retrieve the GitHub repo, either by creating a clone on your local machine or just simply downloading the zip file from the repository, this is the structure you get, and I opened this in Visual Studio Code. And all the magic of provisioning is happening in the provisioning folder. And the main entry point to start your provisioning is the deploy script. And that's what is on screen right now. And this is a relatively, not really that long, but a relatively long PowerShell script with a lot of parameters. But the simplest way to actually provision is starting the deploy script, not deploy util. I have to go to the correct folder. And deploy, and you say tenant URL, and this is the root URL of your tenant. Like this, not /sites, nothing like that. And then you can optionally provide the site prefix. If you do not provide the site prefix, all your sites will be prefixed by default with demo _. And then let me talk you through what's happening actually in the script itself. So we first make sure that you have the latest version of PnP PowerShell installed. Then we will ask you for credentials, and these has to be tenant admin credentials because we create site collections for you. There are some checks for parameters. You can say, you know what, skip the whole site creation thing. I know I have my sites already. So you can do that with some flags if you want to. And then we check if the solution is already pre-packaged and built by you. We provide a pre-built version too that you can upload to your tenant app catalog. But if you don't want to use that one, you want to build on the fly, and you run the script, it will check if it already has been built. If not, it will do the work for you. But this requires that you have the SPFX toolchain installed. So NPM, Yeoman generator, Gulp, all that, those things need to be installed on your environment because it will run NPM install and etc. So if you don't want to do that, you can simply take the existing solution packets and upload that one to your app catalog. Then we connect to the site to your tenant, and we just do that, among others, to get a context and make sure that your credentials work. And then we provision the solution. And we check if the app is already installed in your environment, in your app catalog. If not, we will, if so, we will remove it first to make sure that you get the latest, and we will update the version that we just built for you. And then we apply a provisioning template. And this is the solution XML PnP provisioning template. And in that solution template that we have here, you see, among others, that we upload through the template the packets, the starter kit packets. So this is being uploaded to your tenant app catalog. What we also do is make sure that your CDN settings are correct on your tenant. So the Office 365 CDN, when released, lacked a couple of things in configuration. And if you are one of those people that started to use that really early, when it just came out, you lack this specific configuration. So we make sure that it is there by configuring that through this solution XML. Then, because of this package being installed, there will be a couple of web API permissions generated, and we all approve them here for you. So, for instance, we need access to the graph, and et cetera, et cetera. So we do a couple of things we need, like being able to read all the sites, all your contacts, all your groups, et cetera, and we pre-approve them effectively for you. So you don't have to navigate to your tenant or use the PowerShell commandlets to approve those. So the provisioning engine takes care of that. Then we pre-populate a term group with a term set and a bunch of terms in there that are being used by one of the extensions being the footer. And that's effectively what this solution XML does. It provisions the solution, creates some term sets, etc., and approves the web API. So if we go back to the script, then we make sure that the quick launch is not shown on the home page because we don't need that in our root site, the portal site, if you want to call it like that. And then we apply a theme. And this is not an PnP PowerShell commandlet. This is a script set theme if not set. And that comes from this functions PS1. And in here, if we scroll a bit down, here's the set theme if not set. And we make sure that the theme is being set. Now, this is a bit of a tricky thing we do, or tricky, but there's a thing we do here. There's currently no way of figuring out which theme has been applied other than looking into the property bag and find a key called theme primary. And if that value is matching this, if we look a bit down, this value of the theme primary of your theme, then we just simply assume that you have the theme. So you have a similar theme at the same primary color. You might have a mismatch there. We will not apply the theme. But this is the theme. So if I saw in the chat earlier that someone would like to have a pink theme, this is your entry point. Make changes here. So back to the deploy. Then we make sure that the site is not already a hub site. If it is not, we will register it as a hub site. And we do that here. Then we will set a storage entity value, which effectively is a property bag value in the site collection app catalog. Sorry, not site collection, tenant level app catalog that contains a key for an API that we use. The key you will have to retrieve yourself or register for it yourself. That is to retrieve stock values. And then we apply the actual portal template. So the solution was to upload the solution and do some things on tenant level. And then we have the portal XML file that is being applied in line 123 over here. That will then apply the design to the site. And you see that we sent in a couple of parameters here. So the weather city defaults to, I think, Seattle. The portal title defaults to like Contoso portal. The stock symbol defaults to, in this case, Microsoft. It's all values you can specify the script. And we pick up the ID of the hub site, etc. So a couple of things we sent into this portal XML file. And if we have a look here, there's a couple of things we do. So you see that here's those parameters, and they have default values, but you can override them by means of specifying the parameters attribute or parameter on the apply PnP provisioning template commandlet. We create a couple of site designs and associate site scripts with those. And what we do is these site scripts, when you create a site collection based on the site script, they will associate the site that you just create with that site design with the hub site that we are creating here. And we're running out of time, so I hope actually it's 5 o'clock, so I hope I can cross the 5 o'clock marker and people will hang around a little bit longer. It's another 5 minutes, I'm done with my talk. Okay. So what we do here is these site designs, they are located also in the solution here, and they're relatively straightforward site designs, but we do a little trick that only the PnP provisioning engine can do, is that we can use tokens. Site designs themselves and site scripts do not support tokens, but the PnP provisioning engine does, and you can actually use PnP provisioning engine tokens in your site scripts. They only apply at application time. When you have the engine create the site script, then the tokens will be replaced with the actual value. So they do not work at runtime when you create a site collection based on that site design or site script. Then if we go back to the script, to the portal XML. Then here you will see that we create the navigational structure. So the hub site navigation is nothing other than the top navigation of a site collection. So we add the hub site navigation here. But the difference is that the hub site navigation populates down to every site that has been associated with the hub site. Then we create a couple of site fields, not that interesting. And then we create the client-side pages. And here we create a home page. Now, when you looked at the design that Vesa showed, and maybe you have looked already at the actual starter kit, but I have it open here. See, this is a tiles web part, and the data of this web part is actually stored in the web part properties. It's a JSON string. And we pre-populate links for you here. So if you want to get an example on how to like populate a web part to a page through the PnP provisioning engine with properties already set, this is your example. This is the way to go to have a look at. So we create a couple of pages. We create a couple of sections in their columns. We set web parts, etc. We upload documents, all kinds of things we do here. We create a couple of news articles. Here, see the article pages, and we promote them as a news article, and that makes them automatically show up here, these ones here. If we go all the way down, there's like a couple of lists, and we create a calendar list. We create calendar items in that list. We create an alerts list. We associate here some custom actions which are effectively application customizers, like the footers and a redirect and a site classification customizer that we have available for you. And then we upload all the files to the site assets folder. That's effectively what this template does. Then if we go back to the script, there was a little issue. Actually, we can remove this now because in the last release, latest release has fixed this already, but there was a little issue with the PnP provisioning engine and the association of site designs to the correct web template. But it has been fixed now, so we could actually remove this already, these lines here. But it doesn't hurt to have them around. And then we update the navigation. We set, because we just created 2 site collections, or we actually will create site collections that are part of the hub site structure. And we apply a template, being the collaboration XML, the collab XML, to those specific template sites. But these sites, they show up here in the departments, the human resources and marketing sites. These are the 2 sites. And in that script that I just showed you, we actually add those sites here to the hub site navigation. Because we don't know what the URL is to the site at creation time. So that's why we do that in the script. The structure of the site collections that we create is being read the moment the script runs from this hierarchy JSON file. So here you see the URL, you see portal. The prefix that you specify will be then set in front of this URL. So it will be Contoso portal, in this case, or demo_portal, demo_HR, and demo_marketing. This is a communication site. These will always be created as team sites. So the whole provisioning story will grow. We will do more things in the future. You see there is, for instance, already an Azure PS1 and Azure folder. So we're doing things like automatically provisioning in the future, most likely things like setting up your app, a function app, and creating functions in there, etc., etc., etc. So there will be more things happening on this end. But if you want to see a good example, I would say, about how to do it, somewhat advanced provisioning and creating pages on the fly and setting content in those pages and doing things with site designs and making them a bit more interactive than they can be out of the box, this is the way to the repo to look at.
Absolutely. This is a really great solution and reference sample for showing how to make those things happen, because I think many of the partners anyway need to automate, for example, if they have multiple tenants, to provision stuff on tenants and provision other stuff there as well. So really, really great solution from that perspective as well. And that's absolutely one of the key points of the SharePoint Starter Kit as well. It is a collection of different scenarios, different demos, different technologies, different things, which people can then learn from. But you can also use it as a demo environment for yourself. So. Cool. One thing, like Irvin mentioned, we will add absolutely additional content in the future there, additional news, additional pages. We'll do cross-linking of things, hit kind of a feedback and all of these typical links and all of those content would be available there at some point. We're also looking, like mentioned in the announced blog post today as well, we're looking into eventually have a self-service website. So you as a tenant administrator can go to a site, something like, hey, share cool SharePointDemo.office.com, and then you sign in using a tenant administrator permissions, and then you fill up or you're able to change the default images and themes, and then you say provision, and after a while you will then get an email or a notification that your demo has been provisioned. So you can actually use this as your demo environment for anything pretty much in the future, but one step at a time, one step at a time.
Yep. There was a short question in the chat if we replaced the ALM elements. No, we didn't. It's still there. So it's called Application Lifecycle Management, and it's located under the provisioning template. It's there.
Yeah, it's there, even though right now in our written format, we are actually saying that you should manually update the SPPKG file. And that's mainly because we had some issues, technical issues on that. Most likely it would actually work properly already right now. Yeah. But yes. So it should be working fine. But if you follow up on the README file, if you're using an English tenant and which is set to be a target release tenant, this is definitely working. We've been testing this to clean tenants quite a few times. If you need to have a new tenant by yourself, you can always sign up for Office 365 Developer Program, and you will get a free tenant for developer usage. And that is a great option for you as well. And let me add that link to the IM window, and then we need to actually close. But let me get that one more link in. And now 7 minutes of the time, but this is super important. So if you get that link in the IM window, you can go in, sign in for the Office 365 Developer Program. We will actually renew your free subscription as long as you use that tenant for developer usage. So there are analytics behind of the usage of that tenant, which you will be getting for free. If you're using that for developer usage, it will automatically renew as well. Now, right now, I think it's time to close. We're 8 minutes on, slightly on top of the hour. No worries about the timings too much. The video is getting recorded. We'll get this video on the YouTube for those who were forced to drop earlier on this call, and we'll align with Jack's on the future to make sure that he has his kind of a Flow and PowerApps section on the slides as well. So we'll always have some news on that side of the story in this bi-weekly call as well. But thank you everybody for joining. Thank you Akel for your great demo. Thank you Erwin for your great demo.
Thank you.
We'll be absolutely in touch, and please keep the feedback coming using our GitHub and social media channels. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.